we're back. Chad Rant alongside Jesse Finney. We are 101 ESPN's Hit Squad. We're going to be talking a little pay-per-view, UFC 162. I couldn't do any worse than I did on the last one. We'll be getting our picks next week. I guess I might need to do some research on this one. I know who I'm going with in this one, and something I do want to talk about, Silva versus Weidman. Weidman only has 9 fights.
Weidman has 9 fights. But
He's 9-0.
He's 9-0, but you know, at the same time, Weidman, he deserved it. He's beat some good guys his last couple fights. You can't take it away from the kid. I mean, the kid is a superstar in the making. He really is. And let me tell you something. There's a lot of things that people don't know is there's a lot of buzz whenever you're training with people and you start getting managers involved and UFC's looking for the next big champion. I mean, that's it. And they always want to fight the best against the best. So it's like, hey, if this Weidman kid can actually go out and do it, they've got a lot of things they can work with him, and he's a superstar, man. He really is. I mean, he's a kid that can actually get out and do it. So you ask, oh, well, he's only at 9 fights. Well, yeah, he has 9 fights, but look at the guys he's beaten as well. Uriah Hall's one of them. I don't know if you know that.
I did not know that, and I do now. But that's okay. Uriah lost his luster, I think, a little bit when he didn't quite finish the Ultimate Fighter on top.
On Kelvin with Kelvin. That was a tough matchup.
It was a tough.
It's a matchup. You know, I mean, that's not to say that he's not. Uriah's not. We're jumping subjects here, but not to say that Uriah's not has a brighter future. But you get someone that's going to be in your face like that as a kickboxer, and someone like Kelvin. That's a tough matchup for someone like Uriah. So don't take that away from him.
And now Kelvin is actually getting out of the 185 weight class as well as Sella is. But it's something while we were back onto the subject, and you said UFC's looking for someone who they want to be the champ.
Right.
And
I didn't say necessarily want to be the champ. What they want to do is they want to find the best fighter in the world to be their champion.
John Jones.
Well,
here's my question. Are they dangling a carrot there saying that Silva and Jones is going to happen? I don't think GSP.
Hey, man, if they are, then they don't do much wrong, but that's one thing they will do wrong. Because what's going to happen here is what happens. It's always the what if, but what happens if Weidman goes out and beats him? What's if Weidman goes out and beats him? Then all of a sudden,
where I was going with this.
A lot of luster there, my friend.
that was where that was all going. What if Chris Weidman does knock off, and then all of a sudden it's not Silva versus Jones? Isn't that? And on top of that,
I'm still gonna buy the pay-per-view.
Oh, I
still want Mayweather Pacquiao.
Yes,
so I mean, at the same time, I mean, they're gonna build it up and do it, and it's gonna happen if he wins or loses. Now, I'm telling you, there's a lot of people, including myself, and a lot of GSP said it for years. He said Weidman's gonna beat Silva. A lot of people are saying that. There's a lot of people saying, so it'd be an interesting time to see what happens.
GSP is pretty much, I'm guessing, out of the running for fighting Silva. I don't think especially this year. Because he's fighting Johnny Hendricks on November 11th. So
it's this calendar year, no matter what. But at the same time, you're talking 2 men that are completely
right.
You got a man that walks at 220 pounds, and Anderson Silva, and you got a man that walks at 190, 185, 195 max.
And that one was a long
GSP.
shot.
Yes.
But here's Jones is fighting Alexander Gustafsson, UFC 165. That's happening in September. So I mean, we'll say Silva does beat Weidman. Does it happen in December? Because weren't we promised in the calendar year?
New Year's Eve card.
New Year's Eve. So
New Year's Eve. I mean,
that's where that'll be interesting.
Right.
That's where we will keep an eye on that, and obviously.
But I'll say that that is very interesting. But we'll see how much the casinos are going to pay for to get that fight. That's the number one, because number two is they want to be able to get so much more ticket sales when you get John Jones and you have Anderson Silva. And the whole talk has been all along is the Cowboy Stadium in Dallas.
Oh,
we'll see.
Jerry Jones's $1 billion fiasco down there in Arlington. That would be on the big old Jumbotron. That'd be a great place for a fight. Some things I did want to talk to you about is, I mean, we discussed Weidman having a 9-0 record. Also, and you talked about this in break, Roger Gracie is fighting Tim Kennedy. And Gracie is at 6-1. How many pro fights do you need to get into the UFC, would you say?
Well, it all depends. But if your last name's Gracie, you probably need 3 or 4. I mean, that's
where that is. Okay.
But he's one of the best, if not the best, which he's not the best, I don't think, in my opinion, but one of the best jiu-jitsu guys in the world. And his last name is Gracie.
Doesn't
so it's
hurt.
going to draw in the ordinary fan. So at the same time, that's a good fight with Gracie and Kennedy, because you've got pretty much with Gracie is a great jiu-jitsu guy, not great wrestling. His stand-up has gotten a lot better, I will say that. But Tim Kennedy is a tremendous athlete, is extremely strong and always in great shape. Interesting matchup as it goes. Do I think he deserves to be on the main card? Yes, I actually do think he deserves to be on the main card. Tim Kennedy was fighting for the Strikeforce World Championship, and you got Roger Gracie, who's a world champion jiu-jitsu player that also brings a lot of credibility with the last name Gracie to a card.
Tim Kennedy made a little news talking about fighter pay inside the UFC octagon.
Hey man, I'm going to say this, and I've said this on many times. Okay, if I don't like my pay here at ESPN, I'm not going to do it. Okay, if you don't like your pay, don't do it. If you don't like your pay, don't do it. Stop crying about the pay, because these guys, there's so many other people that want to do your job,
right,
Tim.
yeah.
And if you don't like your job, don't do it. And if you want to sit here and bitch and moan and complain, I'm so over it, then don't do the job, man. I mean, it's like it's a constant crybaby, and I'm disappointed in his actions, because he's a military guy, and you're raised better by the U.S. military to do something like this. And hey, listen, if I didn't like the pay that I was getting from Scott Coker, I wouldn't have did it.
There you go.
If go find another job. There's other options out there. It's just like everyone they're going to sit at their desk and complain about their pay. Go find a better job. That is your job. That's the contract that you signed to fight. Okay, that's a contract you signed when you wanted to get in the UFC. Actually,
you knew what you were getting into.
You knew what you're getting yourself into. And I'm going on a rant here, but it's just like it's so crybaby-ish. They all want to get there to the UFC. They all wanted to get to Strikeforce. They all wanted to get there, but then when they get there, they're not getting enough money. It's just like the contract negotiations with the baseball players that hold out. Hey, listen, if you want to hold out, hold out. Do what you got to do. But you know what? Quit complaining about it.
And that's
my rant. That's my rant of the day.
That's
it
what
really
we
is.
came. That was good. Moving, we're just kind of running down the card. A featherweight fight between Frankie Edgar and Charles Oliveira.
Charles Oliveira.
Oliveira.
Interesting fight.
That is an interesting
fight. I actually would like to see. That's going to be a good fight card. I mean, this overall is going to be a good fight card altogether. And it's July 4th weekend. It's going to be awesome. I mean, you really can't beat it. You're in Vegas. It's the UFC Fan Expo all week. It'll be a fun time to be a UFC fan. And next week, we're going to have a lot of things on the UFC Expo.
That's interesting stuff there. Featherweight on us. Dennis Silva taking on Cub Swanson.
Interesting matchup. I mean, this goes back to not just the ordinary fan doesn't know, but that's an interesting matchup where you see Cub Swanson coming out, and he is always swinging for the fences. So it's a good fight overall.
And the first fight on the main card will be a middleweight bout. Tim Bosch taking on Mark Munoz.
Mark Munoz, man, I mean, he fought for the world championship at one time. So, I mean, and you got Tim Bosch, who's going to be going out to make a name for himself again. He thinks he's going to make it off Mark Munoz. Mark Munoz is one of the top trainers out there, and he's trying to juggle everything at one time. I think he needs to make a choice make a choice if he's going to be a trainer, if he's going to be a fighter. It depends on what own a gym, run, what's a gym? Black House. I mean, it'd be
he's got a lot on his plate.
He's got a lot on his plate. He needs to focus on one. And hey, man, I've made a lot of mistakes in my life, but that was one of the mistakes that I made. It was trying to juggle a little bit too much, and it bit me in the butt in the rear end.
Real quick, we're basically halfway through the calendar UFC year. I noticed
UFC year. It's all about mixed martial arts.
And that's a great point, because actually I was looking. Best knockout of the year right now, they have Belfort taking out Rockhold. I mean, that was that was when the heel kicks were flying all of a sudden.
Heel kicks were flying.
Yeah.
I mean, it has to be.
Midway through the year, who's got your attention, and anything else that stands out to you?
Who's got my attention is here locally, Shamrock Fighting Championships. I hate to see it. It really is, because there's a lot of big things happening for St. Louis, and I think that the UFC is doing a great job. I mean, if you ask me a fighter, I think that the UFC is doing a phenomenal job. I think that mixed martial arts as a whole is doing a great job.
It's all
as far as fighters go, there's a lot of interesting time coming up, and there's a kid that has my attention, and you guys are all going to know his name next week, and it's Chris Weidman.
Okay.
I'm big on him. I've been big on him.
You have been big.
But Anderson Silva, here's the thing with Anderson Silva. He knows how to win. And can Chris Weidman go out there in the MGM in front of 12,000 people and have the nerves that Anderson Silva has? We'll see. Does he have more talent overall than Anderson Silva? He's a better wrestler. He's not as good of a striker. And he's got a high level of jiu-jitsu. So we'll see. I mean, but that Chris Weidman is probably my superstar under the radar right now.
Under the radar. Well, we will be picking next week to see if it's Weidman or Silva. So I'm excited. I'm excited for the fights, and I need to do better. I know that if I'm going to catch
You
it.
only got one way to go, and that's up from there, buddy. 0-5 last week. Our
22
last fight.
and 11. Yes, exactly. Last fights. Yes. Jesse's 22-11. I am 19 and 14. We'll see if I can do better at least and catch you a little
You and
bit.
I both, buddy.
Well, we appreciate you watching us here on 101sports.com. We'll be coming at you next week for Chad Range and Jesse Finney. I'm saying stay classy, St. Louis.